This might just be my favorite non-gaming laptop. Okay, not this specific model because it's spec'd, let's say, badly, but the Asus Zenbook Pro 14 Duo OLED in general. It's definitely got some quirks, but as a whole package, it works pretty well for almost any use case, and the stunning, and I genuinely mean stunning, high-res 120Hz OLED combined with the rather functional 120Hz ScreenPad Plus and an impressive amount of horsepower in a tiny chassis all work really well together as, like I said, an excellent package. So let's take a look. But first, a message from this video's sponsor, Lexar. Their professional series NM800 SSD is a PCIe Gen 4x4 NVMe drive with blazing fast read and write speeds. You get up to 7.4 GB per second in reads and 5.8 GB per second in writes to help power through everything from gaming to content creation. It also features low-density parity check to ensure your data stays secure, and it even features an astonishing 3000 terabyte written rating. That's 3 petabytes. Check it out at the link in the description below. Let's start off with the displays. I'd say displays because this is a dual screen laptop, it is the Duo version, and let's start with the primary, which is this absolutely gorgeous 2880 by 1800 120Hz OLED panel. It's rated at 100% coverage of the DCI-P3 spectrum, although in my testing it came out a little better, and actually with an average delta E of just 0.87. That's fantastic. It only peaked at around 350 nits of brightness though, down from the 500 nits that the ScreenPad Plus is now rated for. Both displays are touchscreens with stylus support, more on that in a bit, although the ScreenPad Plus is a matte display while the OLED has a glossy finish. Content on the OLED is just stunning. It's vibrant, crisp, and those deep blacks make every other display look like you have cataracts. I can't explain or emphasize just how much I enjoy using this panel. It is 16 by 10, which some people do prefer, although personally I would rather have more width than height here. Although happily, being an OLED, the black bars that get placed on the top and bottom of content in general fade to literally nothing because they are completely off, a party trick that relatively few machines can match. The ScreenPad, on the other hand, isn't an OLED. I believe it's an IPS panel with a quoted 500 nit peak brightness across the 12.7 inch display. The resolution matches the primary at 2880 wide, although only 864 pixels tall. And it does also match the same 120Hz refresh rate. Now, sadly, this is one of the more jarring aspects of this machine. You get the rich, vibrant colors and deep blacks in the OLED, and then you get a hazed, bright IPS panel that is especially noticeable when it drops into the screensaver mode to save the OLED, and especially in a darker room, the IPS glow is really noticeable, especially compared to the literally pitch black OLED just above it. They don't quite match, well, just all that well. Now, it's not a massive problem, you soon forget about it with actual use, but I think it is worth noting before you buy. And lastly for the display, I have to mention the rather interesting and pretty weird response time results. Much like many other OLEDs myself and others have tested, the panel dips to black during a display refresh. In fact, it actually does it twice per frame, and equally strangely, it decides to never fully transition in the first frame. It stops just short of the sort of correct final level, and then settles in on the next frame, kind of as you would expect. It's a strange one, but regardless, since this is an OLED, the actual sort of response time is effectively instant. Okay, let's talk about something other than the screens, maybe the performance. yeah, so that is rather new for this model. Gone are the low-power Intel Evo chips like the i7-1165G7. Instead, we get up to an i9-12900H with 14 cores, I mean, that's 6 performance and 8 efficiency, and up to an 85-watt power limit. You also get up to 32GB of soldered LPDDR5 4800 RAM and up to 2TB of Gen 4x4 NVMe SSD storage. Oh, and you can even option this up with a dedicated graphics card. It's only an RTX 3050 Ti, but that can make a significant difference to the usability, especially in more productivity apps like Premiere Pro. Now, I said up to a lot there because I don't have, well, any of that. I have the i7-12700H with 16GB of RAM and just 500GB of storage. Oh, and no dedicated graphics card. Regardless of that though, the 12700H in this laptop is now the single fastest laptop CPU I've tested. Seriously, in Cinebench R23 single-threaded, it's a good 200 points clear of even the 11900H, Apple's M1 Pro 10-core chip, and more like 300 points clear of AMD's 5000 series mobile chips. In multi-threaded, it manages to monster everything else, even the insane 11900H in turbo mode, which chugged back 120 watts of power. And this is the only in its 80-watt performance mode, not the unbearable 85-watt mode instead. In Blender, things look even better, managing to even beat out the Ryzen 5900HX's sub 200 second result with a healthy lead to boot. Taking just shy of 3 minutes is the fastest that I have tested, at least so far anyway. Although switching to the Gooseberry scene, it does lag slightly behind that Miracle 5900HX chip by about 30 seconds, but that's still miles ahead of the entire rest of the pack, so I can't say that I'd be too worried. Unfortunately, as we can see in the Puget Bench suites in Premiere Pro, this spec nets a fairly awful score, mostly thanks to the complete lack of the dedicated graphics card and having to share the relatively limited amount of RAM with the iGPU. Don't get me wrong, you can certainly still edit on this spec, but it's a little of a lackluster experience for sure. After Effects is much the same, scoring around half of every other machine. Photoshop does bring it back though, not quite to the fastest position, in fact not by a long shot, but it's much closer to the rest of the pack. Of course, a chip like this isn't overly happy drawing up to 85 watts in a chassis this small, and even with Asus's new Active Aerodynamic System Ultra setup with even more space for the fans to breathe in through the top, it can still sound like a jet engine taking off with quite a whiny tone to it. In normal operation though, it's definitely not bad, and often turns the fans fully off, like right now, which is a nice touch. I wouldn't say that it's all that obnoxious if you're just web browsing or word processing while, say, on the go, which brings us nicely onto the portability of a machine like this. It weighs in at just 1.7 kilograms, it even comes with a nice carry sleeve to carry it around with you, and is plenty small enough to fit in most backpacks, so I would say it checks the box for portability quite nicely. The downside is that you're not using USB-C for charging this thing. Instead, it comes with a standard barrel plug and wall adapter, so you will have to carry this thing around, although this in itself is one of the smaller bricks you'll find and is relatively light as well, so not too big of a deal. If you do want to run it on battery, I got around 5 hours of media playback time or battery life with the brightness set to medium on both displays. That's not quite all-day battery life or ultrabook territory, but for a more sort of pro powerhouse style machine, I don't think that's too bad. Sadly, with the small size, Asus have opted to put in as few ports on this as they can. stretching for a single USB-A port on the right side, as well as 2 USB-C or Thunderbolt 4 ports, a single HDMI port on the back, along with DC in and a micro SD card slot, and you get a headphone jack on the left. That's about it. Now that does sound like a lot if your reference frame is a MacBook, but that single type A port just killed me trying to use this thing, especially for what is meant to be a pro device. One seemingly genuine sort of pro item here is the included stylus. This is the Asus Pen 2. It's a rechargeable with a little USB-C port with a pop-out cap. It also has interchangeable tips and includes multiple different sizes and styles in the box, which is great. And it feels genuinely premium in the hand and feels great to use with 4096 levels of pressure sensitivity, of course. The only downside is that the main display wobbles like nobody's business when you're trying to write or draw or do anything with the stylus on it. So you're likely to prefer using the ScreenPad Plus, although you do have hotkeys to disable the keyboard and the trackpad. So if you did want to use the ScreenPad as your drawing surface, it's actually quite a nice, quite relatively comfortable experience. As a package, assuming that you can get your hands on a model with more storage than my camera's SD cards and a dedicated GPU, this is one hell of a package. It probably costs an arm, a leg, and a kidney and maybe even an eye, but if you want to be a power user on the go, I'm not sure that there is, or at least I can think of a better machine to do that on. The dual displays, especially in this form factor, coupled with the horsepower that's on tap, add to what I would say is more than the sum of their parts and make it for an excellent usage experience. The mismatch between the two displays is a little jarring, and the limited I/O, especially just the single type A port, means you will need to carry a dongle if you use it, but it's hard to deny that this isn't an excellent machine and one that I very much enjoy using. With that said, those are my thoughts, but I would love to hear yours in the comments down below. What do you think of the fantastically named Asus Zenbook Pro 14 Duo OLED? What do you think of it? Is it a machine you would pick up or use yourself, or say for your business, or would you rather go with a standard sort of single screen display, maybe their new flip model? That might be a bit better, especially for drawing, or for better battery life as well. Feel free to let me know in the comments down below. I'll also leave a link to this in the description. I can't guarantee that it will be available or the right spec, but you can take a look at that. That will be a global Amazon affiliate link if you're interested. And there is a load of ways that you can both stay up to date on these videos, like hitting the subscribe button and the notification bell, or also checking out more on the end cards as they pop up, and supporting me in my, well, ramblings. You can do so with the links in the description, things like Patreon, or actually the YouTube join button, and become a YouTube member as well. You can pick up a hoodie or t-shirt like this one, a load of other cool designs I made myself, or check out things like the sponsors links if you're interested, or there's other affiliate links that are in the description as well. Otherwise, that is kind of it. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.